Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're ready to talk about getting a first class degree. Now, for those of you who may not know, the university grading system works so that you get a first class if you get 70% or above, a 2-1 if you get 60% or above, a 2-2 if you get 50% or above, a pass or a third if you get 40% or above, and below 40% was a fail. Now, I'm pretty sure those percentages are consistent across all degrees at all universities, but if I'm wrong, please let me know, drop it down in the comments below. So now we've got that covered, I thought I'd put out there what has happened with my university career so far. So I've just finished my second year of real estate at the University of Reading, but I haven't yet had my results. I was able to achieve a first class in my first year, which I'm very proud about. So I thought I'd share with you guys any tips or tricks I've learned along the way so that you too would be able to achieve a first or at least improve your grades somewhat, because I don't know if I've got it second year, let alone my final year. So yeah, stick around and hopefully I can help you some way. Without further ado, let's get into the video. So, tip number 1, I'd recommend finding the revision technique that works for you. So, coming through A-levels, flashcards I thought were the be-all and end-all that could get me through anything. And in hindsight, I probably spent more time creating them than I did using them. But I mean, we live and we learn and we move forwards, and I've refined my techniques. I now use a website/app called Anki, which saves me a lot of time so I can copy and paste and I don't have the fear of losing them because it's all synced to a cloud. And that's ANKI. This isn't any sort of promotional video, it's just what I found useful, so I thought I'd put it out there to you. But I've also found that note cards now aren't actually all the be-all and end-all, surprisingly. So for my more essay-based subjects, I find it a lot easier to do mind maps, or what I call condensed sheets. Now, if this video reaches 25 likes, I'll do another one, explain different revision techniques and what can work and what can't, especially in different areas, because everything's different. But I know I didn't hit that in the last video where I requested 25 likes, so if I keep asking for it, hopefully I'll hit it one day. Keywords hopefully. But yeah. The other thing I would recommend with your revision techniques is play around quite early. So a lot of the universities have their years weighted differently. So say for me, my first year didn't count towards my final degree. My second year counts 33%. My last year 66%. Pushing obviously the remainder. So yeah, if you can find the revision technique that works early for you, not only will you find it earlier, which will help in the long run, but find it on the projects that are worth and weighted less. So you've got more freedom to experiment when, if it goes wrong, it's not as severe as if, say, a 50% goes wrong on a module that's worth a sixth of your final year, if you get what I'm saying from that point of view. But anyway, moving on to my second top tip for how to get a first at university. My second tip would be to develop a routine for the aforementioned techniques. Now, I've left that quite open and quite generic because it really does vary person to person, course to course. These could be weekly routines, they could be daily routines, or there could be my preferred method of lecture routines. And by lecture routines, that's quite a generic term. I'm including lectures, tutorials, seminars, any sort of interactive session. But as an avid note taker, I like to get everything down, including what I need to do before the next lecture. And that will mostly be taking note cards from the lecture just gone and getting any reading done for the lecture just gone / for the next upcoming lecture. And yes, you will need to do some of the extra reading if you do want to push towards getting first, but that doesn't mean you necessarily have to read every single page of everything, it just means you need to do some at least. But making the plans the easy part, what you need then is to actually go and get it done. And I have a couple of things I like to do to help me with this, including number 1 is I have a set space that I like to go to, my set working space. That's up on the 5th floor of the library if you then turn right. It just works for me. But I'll touch more on that later. I also like to try and get my techniques done before I go home. So in an ideal world, I'll go straight from the end of the lecture to the library. I mean, it doesn't always happen, but it's just nice then to have that feeling of going back home and being able to relax, as opposed to getting distracted cooking or socialising. On to my third tip about how you can get a first. So my third tip is to start early. One of the best pieces of advice I've been given at university is to do the reading for week 1 during freshest week, the reading for week 2 in week 1, the reading for week 3 in week 2, etc, etc, etc. Because that way you always stay 1 week ahead. First of all, it means you have a clue what's going on in lectures, but also there's a bit of a scram for textbooks. A lot of the ones published, or a lot of the ones recommended to us, aren't always published online, which means you need a physical paper copy. Now these can either cost hundreds of pounds and be horrifically expensive, or they can be in very short supply in the library. And by doing the reading a week early, you're less likely to have all the copies checked out as you were doing it on the time it was due or after that, which allows you to get all the resources you want and get ahead with your planning and like stay in track with your planning in order to get a first. But yeah, it also allows you that if you've got a question, you can be the person to go and ask the lecturer yourself. So when they're answering, you're not going to be the 17th person. They're not going to be like pulling their hair or like go. You can just be the person that again gets the answer directly from the lecturer and then posts it in the group chat for everybody else to use if you're feeling generous. But without further ado, on to my fourth tip on how to get a first at university. The fourth tip I have is to plan your work based on the amount of work you have rather than the amount of time you have to do it. So I'm a firm believer in Parkinson's law, in that the more time you give to a task, it will expand to fill that time. So if you give yourself half an hour, a task will take half an hour. If you give yourself an hour, you will take an hour on it. So I'd set each amount, this is what I've got to do, and I wouldn't set a time to it, I'd just say, get that done. Now, in order to decide how much you should set yourself, say each week, I would advise looking at the bigger picture. So, as in, if you've got a project, how much have you got to read and how long have you got? And then break down, okay, I need to read 2 books a week, so I need to read this many pages a day, etc., etc. And then if it is too much and you find it's too much on your plate, the thing I would recommend doing is looking for, okay, what are the key sources? Or what are the sources that will cover multiple modules / multiple topics? And I'd focus in on those. But that was a short tip, so on to tip number 5, about how to get a first. Is another short one, but nevertheless, it's an important one. And it's to leave plenty of time at the end of your plans. So this can be revision time, so I make a lot of note cards, as I've just mentioned, maybe once or twice. But you need plenty of time to go over those and actually let them sink in. So I like to start personally, absolute latest, worst case scenario is the first week of the Easter break, but I like to start well before then. Obviously, people have different techniques, but as far as I'm aware, all techniques are perfected with the extra time you spend on them. So say, to put blocks of information you have together, or to create the time needed for active space repetition. But if you do have a technique that doesn't require much time at all, please drop it down in the comments below. I would be eternally grateful. Although if it's shared with everybody, maybe to make a first worthless. Not worthless, worthless. Anyway, that's not a debate I want to get into right now. Another benefit for leaving plenty of time at the end of your plan before your exams is that if you're not hitting your deadlines, you have plenty of time to adjust. Or if you miss a week, you don't have to worry and stress and panic. You don't have to think you're going to miss your deadline, or you don't have to work for a week without sleeping or eating. It's just all like a more relaxing working experience, which will actually yield better work and increase your chance of getting a first. On to that, here's my 6th tip, and that is to get yourself a study buddy. I cannot stress the benefits of getting yourself a study buddy. I've used one since A-levels and it's worked brilliant for me. And now they can work in a variety of different ways. They can answer some silly questions that you may have without you just feeling like you're constantly nagging them, or that could be a 2-way thing where it tests your knowledge, how well do you actually understand something. If they're asking you a question, can you answer it? It can act as a prod if you're with a study buddy and they've done 50 articles worth of reading and all you've done is 50 episodes worth of watching of your favourite series. Maybe you know that it's time to get that prod out of bed and get working. Or it can even be a competition where you set up a chart, I've worked for this many hours, how many hours have you worked for? It just depends, again, on what the goal is. But I don't know, I've just found it a real help for me. As for picking a study buddy, I look for somebody who's either on the same level as me, or has the same goals as me, or striving for the same places. Because I find that helps us align our values and say how many hours we want to do, or prodding me out of bed if I'm not working. On to my 7th tip to how to get a first. I'd say eliminate distractions. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I have the special place I go when I enter it. I have a special mindset that eliminates distractions. I know this isn't possible for everybody, not everybody has the library access, especially with the current social distancing requirements. So I'm just going to talk about mobile phone distractions or eliminating them, because that's something people do have control over. Now, I've heard of two main ways, I've seen two main ways to limit your mobile phone as a distraction. And that is number one, by planting the Forest app, which is an app that basically grows a tree on your phone. And when you go on the phone, you kill the tree. So yeah, please don't do that. Please don't kill the tree. Stay off the phone. But a more extreme version that I tend to use, and my mate tends to use, is just leaving your phone completely. So when I go to the library on a night, for instance, I'll just leave it at my house, in my bedroom, in a locked and hidden place. Or he'll tend to do it where he puts it, say, in his room and goes to work in the kitchen, but I know that wouldn't work for me, as my kitchen's quite a rowdy place, or am I just being extra? Anyway, enough about me. On to the 8th tip about how you can get a first. My final tip is don't be afraid to ask questions. Now, most of the feedback you get on your work comes online to you, and maybe one or two sentences dotted here and here and here. If you don't understand that, please drop the marker or the convener an email, because you're not going to improve unless you realise where you went wrong in the first place and then reflect on it. If you don't understand what you're meant to be reflecting upon, how are you meant to improve? So don't worry, just there's not as much support immediately there checking in on you all the time as if you're at school. But only when you reach out to somebody and ask, 9 times out of 10, they will come back and they will help you because they want to see you improve. On top of that, don't be afraid to ask midway through lectures. So lectures often have half-time breaks, and all people tend to do is talk and socialise amongst themselves. If you take that time and a lecturer's mentions something that you don't understand, if you go and ask them about it, first of all, it shows you've been engaged, that they haven't just wasted their time, but nobody else can hear you. They'll all be chatting within their groups. So whatever you say will just stay between the two of you. And chances are, if you don't understand it, a lot of other people aren't going to understand it. So the lecturer could go back over it, or when you go sit back down, people could ask you, oh, what was that about? You say, oh, I didn't understand X, Y, Z. They'd be like, oh, me neither. What did they say? And yeah, I'd just say, how are you going to learn unless you, ask questions? God, am I just a really, really annoying student? Thank you for watching the video. I can't promise that following these tips exactly will get you a first, but hopefully they should boost your grades. Again, they worked for me in the past, so hopefully they'll continue to work in the future. Please comment below if you think that I've missed out anything that you found useful. And please hit subscribe if you want to stay around. Hint, hint, I'm thinking about doing a video in the future comparing getting a 1-1 to a 2-1. Again, let me know if that's something you'd enjoy. And as always, thank you very much for your time, and have a wonderful rest of your day.